Good afternoon. This is the Devar Torah on Parshas Korach. It is the Parsha that primarily goes around Korach's rebellion with an additional 250 members of the tribe of Reuven. And the Parsha, in brief, is despite the best efforts of Moshe and Aaron, none of the rebels would listen. Moshe then said, if they die in a way of normal men normally die, then Hashem hasn't sent me. If they haven't, and they die in a new way, then Hashem has sent me, and I am. And before he almost finished his words, the earth opened up, not an earthquake. It just swallowed all of Korach's camp, all of the and the families just sucked everything up. And his followers, and the 250 members of the tribe of Reuven, who offered the incense, were all killed. The incense was still holy, which is in the temple, and fire pans. But after that, you think at that point the people would have realized who was at fault. The next day, Bnei Israel complained that you've taken God's children, meaning all the rebels, and God started a plague. Moshe told Aaron to take out a fire pan with smoking incense, and that stopped the plague. And then there was a test once and again to show each one of the heads of the tribe plus Aaron's staff were put in the Mishkan overnight. Each had their name on it. And next thing they said, whoever, in other words, will blossom with a stick, will blossom with almond flowers, whatever, would be the leader. And the one that blossomed was Aaron's. In fact, that could be seen many, many times through the Mishkan First Temple. In any event, the Parsha then goes on to talk about the gifts, dedication of Levium to serve the Kohanim. The Kohanim will get certain, when offerings will get certain sections for their work, and Levim will also get a certain amount of Meiser and other things, special taking, and even Levim have to give something to the Kohanim, and that is basically the outline of the Parsha. Now, what I'd like to do is focus on Korach, and it opens up with Korach Lekach. Now, when it says Korach Lekach, Yikach, excuse me, Korach, ben Sehar, ben Kahal, ben Levi, and Datan Avram, and Be'eliav, Va'on, ben Pelet, B'nai Ruvain, Korach, son of Yisasar, grandson of Koat and great-grandson of Levi, began rebellion, along with Datan and Aviram, sons of Eliav, and Oran, own son of Pelet, descendants of Ruvain. They had a confrontation, and then goes on to say they had a confrontation with Moshe along with 250 Israelite men who were men of rank, community representatives in assembly, and famous. And what was their accusation? Then goes on to declare that saying all the Jews should be equally holy, and therefore you shouldn't, Moshe and Aaron, you shouldn't be ruling over us, forgetting that's what Hashem wanted. And it says, Yikach Korah. Then after that says they began a rebellion. So it says Yikach. What did Korach take? Now, there are a number of explanations given, one that's based on Rashi, that he was taking the other people along with him. Another explanation is that that it meant that he separated himself again. The Orach HaKodesh goes on at some length explaining why those two wordings are not the best. Another term should have been used. And he gives his own explanation, but the one I would like to give is that what did he take? That Korach took the bad part of the Neshama, Helekim, pieces of the Neshama, which Neshama soul. Who was it? It was that of no one other than Cain, Adam's son. Now, to explain this, I need to give some background here. This story really has to go back to Cain now and Hevel, or Cain and Abel, as they say in English. And one has to understand that the traditional story that, well, Cain, offering Hashem got restricted, rejected, and Hevel's didn't, and was accepted, and he became jealous, and then he struck down his brother. There's more to it than that. That was obviously a factor in there. But what else happened? Something else really happened here. And what was it? It says that Cain rose up and killed Hevel. Now, if they were face to face in confrontation, why would he have to rise up? And they explained there's another section to this, another aspect of this, that what Hevel had asked Cain was to have one of Cain's sisters in marriage. Cain refused. Hevel became infuriated. He knocked Cain down to the ground. It's at that time that Cain, that was the final straw for Cain, rose up and he killed Hevel by whatever means. There's different sources on how exactly he did it. But the main point is he committed the first murder in history. Now, there's a number of things we can derive from Cain's character. First of all, even though Hashem had virtually given him the whole world, there weren't that many people there at that time, he wanted more. He could not be accepted by his body, he could not accept that he needed to improve for better parts of the fruits and wheat and sacrifices rather than waste material. Well, Hevel gave up the best of the sheep. That's one side of it. And this theme of not being content with your role, thinking you should get more, you should be deserving of more, and when you don't get it, you lash out. And it's all about keeping. He didn't even want to share his sister, who obviously wasn't going to marry. He didn't want to share his sister. And he then killed Hevel, putting all those factors. Now, what does that have to do with our worship and this whole story of Korah? You have to understand that Cain came back as a Gilgal reincarnation in the time of Moshe. Actually, he came back as three different people. The first one he came back with was as the Mitri that Moshe killed, who had been beating a Jewish slave, and turns out was a very evil man because he was the one who came back into the tent of one of the Jewish wives when the men were out in the field. She is to be with her. She assumed that it was her husband, and from that was produced a child who, a few portions ago, blasphemed Hashem's name and was stoned. And Moshe, so that was, he was one of the reincarnations of Hevel. Moshe didn't understand, of Cain, excuse me, Moshe didn't understand was reincarnation of Hevel. And it was Mida, Keneged Mida, justice being meted out, that Moshe would kill as Hevel would kill him. Now, the second aspect is Cain, who was the second Gilgal of Cain? Second Gilgal of Cain was Yithro, Moshe's father-in-law. Now, Moshe's father, and just like Cain refused to give one of his sisters, now Hevel had to give one of his daughters, Zipporah, as a wife to Moshe. Now, why Zipporah? Even if you say she was the oldest of the daughters, she had six other sisters. He had six other daughters. She had another with six sisters. Why her? And we have to look at this picture a little more closely. Who was she a Gilgal of? She was a Gilgal of Cain's unnamed sister who Hevel wanted to marry. So therefore it was only appropriate Moshe, who was a Gilgal of Hevel, and how did that work? He was also a Gilgal of Seth, who was a Gilgal of Hevel, and also Shem, Noah's son, was another Gilgal through which Moshe came. And therefore, it was entirely reasonable that he had to, he was a wife. Now, the third part, in which is apropos here, is that Korach, Lakach, the most negative aspects of the Neshama of Cain, and when he became a Gilgal of Cain, and it's amazing the parallels here. Korach was of the very extremely wealthy man. He had the honor of being one of the four people to bear the Ark, the Torah, desert, but he didn't think that was enough. What did he want? He wanted to usurp the priesthood. He wanted to take over rule. And he could not be content with his portion. He could not be content with what he had. He wanted more and more. In fact, Moshe said to him, you were already a Levite. Now you want to take over the Cohen as being priest. Cohen says, it's too much. You see, grabbing for too much. And again, it was a lack of contentment. It was a lack of accepting one's role, which goes totally connected against what one is supposed to do. And as it says in Pirkei Avos, fourth parak, Parak Daled, Ben Zoma says, and he said, Ezu is Shira, who is a wealthy person. Tov Erek Apanim Gibor, excuse me, Eshlemeach Behelko, he's happy with his portion. In other words, whatever Yeshem gives him, it's what he needs, and anything beyond that he doesn't need, he doesn't covet anything. And Shnema, Higia Kapecha Ki Toko, Shreka and Tov Lacha, Shreka Balam Azeh, and Tov Lalam Haba. And it says, who is rich, he is happy with his lot, as it says, when you eat of the labor of your hands, you are praiseworthy, and all is well with you. You are praiseworthy in this world, all is well with you in the world to come. Now, that was the direct opposite of Korach, who was trying to get more and more than what he needed, usurping power. He had all the honors, and that led to his destruction. Now, to show that that was his destruction. Now, what's also, and so one has to learn to be, and this is a lesson that goes to both men and women who are listening to this Devar Torah, you have to be content with your lot and be very happy with what you receive. If things don't always turn out the way you want, there's reasons for it. And as Van said last week, with a week show, 12 days, and where we finally miraculously were rescued. There's many aspects of it that one could not ahead, but everything was the best. Now, another aspect here, and this applies to both husband and wives in different ways. Korach's wife, what did she do? You see, the Kohanim to be redeemed and be dedicated to serving the Kohanim and serving the Mishkan, had to be purified, which involved them shaving their heads and being immersing in mikveh and being waved, literally waved back and forth like this. And Korach's wife said that's insulting. It's demeaning, and that's one of the things she encouraged her husband to try to take over. And there's another one. One of the rebels that's mentioned is somebody named On, or tribe of Reuven. Now, On was all ready to join the rebels, but his wife realized that would be a disastrous idea. So what did she do? She gave him wine, plied him with wine, and he passed out. Now, two of the followers of this tribe of Reuben were coming to get him. So what did they do? Both On's wife and her daughter, both married women, sat in the entrance to the tent and uncovered their hair. A married Jewish woman must keep her hair covered, except in the presence of her husband in her house. These two men who were going were such evil people that even with that, they would not push past women to go into the tent with their women's hair being uncovered. So even the Rishoyim, the rebellious ones, had standards. And then he was being sucked in, as all the rebels were, into the opening in the earth. However, Mrs. On tried to keep him, and eventually, he did tshuva and got spared at the last minute. Now, what do we derive from this? We derive the following lessons. Is that wife should be supportive of her husband when possible. I once heard it said by Rav that, yes, man may be the head of the family, but the wife is the neck, and the head without a neck is not very useful, as one's ever experienced they can testify to. And look at the two wives. One led to her husband's downfall. The other one saved him through great effort. And that is the role of the wife. The husband must learn to listen to his wife's counsel, that women can be wise, and that marriage is a true partnership, and husband and wife complement each other. As we're going into the first Shabbat after the war with Iran, may we all have a peaceful Shabbat, both in Eretz Israel and around the world. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.